right now. He has to keep shuffling with the rooks, like you mentioned, keep the position as is, and let Magnus show what is his improving technique here. He plays the move e3, so making sure that black doesn't have that e-pawn push anymore, which at the right time would have activated that bishop, gets the other rook into the game. To me, it's really impressive, the speed with which Dennis is responding, a position that's slightly passive for him. Because for Magnus, he's playing not only the board, but also Dennis's clock. So Dennis needs to make sure that he has those extra seconds, that extra minute, when those critical decisions will have to be made. And they will come when you'll have to decide which pawns to trade, which pawns to push in this position. Do you ever want to make a move like g5? Do you just want to stay still? So there are some big decisions ahead on the road for Dennis. I like his speed. David, how do you think, you know Magnus best, what do you think is going on in his mind right now? How does he see this being played out?
Magnus is just calculating. I think he's turned off the emotions here. It feels like Magnus has upped his game from yesterday, where there was a bit of inconsistency. There are a few slip-ups here and there. He's just gone back to basics. Magnus kind of 1.0, the Magnus who first broke onto the scene, where it's just about grinding himself and kind of look at this, pawn to c5, now undermining Black's stronghold on the queen side. I think this is Magnus zeroing in. You mentioned being impressed by Dennis's speed, Tanya. I was too, but suddenly I look at the clock and he's a minute and a half down. Suddenly the Black queen side on the verge of collapse. So yeah, it feels like Magnus is, again, keeping things simple. Rook to b2 there, just covering the a2 pawn. Soon the white light square bishop will come into the game. There we go, it reroutes itself. And yeah, I've got to say I'm very biased towards the white position right now. It looks like Black is just really tied up defending everything and no active plans. But the breakthrough is, who knows? Magnus and Dennis both know better than I do, but right now it does look like White's advantage only growing kind of incrementally, step by step, Robert.
Every single move, and this pawn on a5 is just such a problem piece for Black to deal with. If this pawn were back on a7, you'd feel like you'd a healthier structure. For now, the knight on c8 can't easily get out because you might drop the b6 pawn. You don't want to take on c5 because then a5 will drop. So here it's about making that incremental progress that we're talking about. A bishop to e2 at some moment to also play g4, further expansion. But if you start trading pawns, it gives the Black rooks some files. So I love the way Magnus continues to play. His rooks have changed. I don't care about that question mark. Get out of here with that. That's not a question mark move. And I don't even know what Black should do to respond. It says Black's best move here. Yeah, it was going to be played. Knight to e7, giving away this b6 pawn. So if that's the way to get out of it, you're not finding that as a human with 1 minute and 15 seconds on your clock. Magnus is doing everything right, in my opinion. He controls this board.
Look at that last move, pawn to a3. He's in zero rush at all. Again, instructive for everyone at home. When you have a long-term advantage, when there's no immediate threats from your opponent, you don't need to rush, just slowly improve. He's freed up that white rook on b2. Now it will no longer be tied down to that pawn. As Robert mentioned, at some point he might even play king to g2 to defend the white h3 pawn, kind of let the light square bishop loose to start playing. And Dennis, every single move he's asked with a question, what are you doing? How do you improve? Black cannot improve his position, cannot create any threats, and that burns time on the clock. Look at this, 30 seconds. Tanya, the time situation, it looked under control, but suddenly no longer.
It's always so impressive how easy Magnus makes these endgames look. He has this unique ability to combine all these different aspects in the position. He first advances on the king side, gains the space, slowly improves the king, puts the rooks on the correct files, which potentially long-term can open up, so they're ideally placed. Meanwhile, Black's rook doubled on the D line, but they're undermined by that D4 pawn. The bishop's coming into play, small moves like a3, forcing Dennis to make a move, which is much harder when you lack spaces. And for Magnus Carlsen, it just feels like the Magnus magic when it comes to these endgames. And look at him on the camera. He looks so incredibly confident. And now Dennis has to hold this position with just 20 seconds on the clock.
Complete control. from Magnus Carlsen. Every single little move, a pawn push to get off the diagonal. And by the way, Dennis is getting really low on time, and that's when mistakes happen. Advantage growing. Bishop e2, a correct response, keeping that king frozen, opening the C and B files. But where is the knockout? There must be something here, or at least in the near future, as Dennis is under 10 seconds, David.
And there we go. Magnus opens up a second front of attack. He's already probed away on Black's left flank. Now he's switching focus and hoping to overwhelm the Black army. And wow, every move suddenly it's kingside, then queenside, kingside and queenside. And there we go. Rook c6. He's infiltrated enemy lines. He's into the 6th rank. That Black Knight is so sad right now. Dennis's time situation is sad as well. 8 seconds left. It's on the brink of collapse, as you say, Robert. Still yet to kind of click that domino, flick it, and for everything to start toppling. But Magnus is looking for the breakthrough. And yeah, here there's so many tempting moves right now for White.
A lot of tempting moves, and it's also so instructive how Magnus kept improving his position, made these small moves, and only went for the g4 break when Dennis was down to seconds, because it's such a difficult move to respond to. And he might give a check on c4 right now. I don't believe you can fall back with the bishop. I'm already looking at ideas like the d pawn moving forward, and that would have been tactics that would have worked in Magnus's favor. It just looks like Black's pieces are losing harmony right now. The rook is active, the knight on c8. There has to be something really strong right now. Can White start thinking about advancing the d pawn? Does he put pressure on the c8 knight? What's the move here?
Too many good options. I'm actually not sure, and nor is Magnus, and that's why he's doing the right thing. He's slowing down. He pushes his pawn to d5. That opens up a diagonal for the dark square bishop. But look at Dennis. He is hanging in there. He may have 7 seconds left, but his last few moves have been solid. Magnus is like, how do I actually win this game? Because if Dennis gets his knight out, watch out. I mean, suddenly this becomes a bit messy, and White's king is feeling a little bit lonely. There could be checks against it and things of that nature.
Dennis, he's so resourceful. Wow, Magnus sacrifices the exchange. I was about to say Dennis nearly never loses because he defends better than most players in the world. And suddenly he's given up another pawn on the a5 square. Magnus's d pawn looks huge. He played that last move with 3 seconds left, Dennis. It might be the crunch of time trouble here. A pin? He needs to react. He defends his bishop. Magnus's bishops are going to become monsters. There we go. Another pawn drops. It's bishop and 2 pawns for the rook and a check.
Oh.
Has Magnus seized it now? Dennis shaking his head. Robert, he's on the brink.
Yes, a win for Magnus Carlsen, resignation, but it was time that did Dennis Lazavik in. You see the last move, a brilliant